Hi, I'm Angelo Gavrielatos, the Federal President of the Australian Education Union. The outcome of this federal election will impact on education. We've now had almost 5 weeks of a federal election campaign where the parliamentary parties have been making announcements with respect to education. It is now time, with only a few days to go before the election, to make an assessment of what those policies are and how they'll impact on education. So let's start with the ALP. There's no doubt that in its first term of office, the Labor Party made unprecedented investments into education. It also commenced the review of schools funding, a review into the discredited, flawed SES funding system. It was therefore very regrettable during the course of this election campaign that the ALP announced that it would extend this funding system until the end of 2013. They will maintain the review and they intend to introduce legislation prior to 2013. In what's been an interesting coalescing and convergence of policies by the ALP and the Liberal Party, the ALP has also announced a number of other policies. They announced an extension of the school chaplains program, and they also announced school rewards and bonuses. These aren't good policies. Another example of the Labor Party embracing coalition policy is the announcement of 1,000 schools trialling a school autonomy program. Our concern with such announcements is that ultimately it allows governments to abrogate their responsibility to ensure that every child, regardless of their school setting, has a qualified teacher in front of their classroom. With respect to the Liberal Party has said that they will extend this discredited funding system until the end of 2016. It's important for us to recognise what the impact of this will be. In real terms, by the end of 2016, private schools will get an additional $2.3 billion, whilst government schools will only get an additional $625 million from the Commonwealth Government. In teacher terms, that means 8,300 teachers additional for private schools and only 1,670 additional teachers for state schools. The Liberal Party has also made announcements with respect to teacher bonuses, school chaplains, but also the introduction potentially of self-governing schools, a devolution agenda. As part of their desire to privatise education, the Liberal Party has also announced tax benefits for school fees. They've also announced vouchers for special education. We know that special education is a much neglected area, but vouchers for a limited number of students are certainly not the answer. The Liberal Party will also slash $2 billion from the education budget, disproportionately impacting on government schools. With respect to the Greens, they have stated a clear opposition to the SES funding model. Committed to the funding review, they also believe that there needs to be a dramatic increase in funding to public schools. The Greens recognise that true equity in the provision of education can only exist if government schools set the standard for high quality education. The Greens have also announced some policies on the recruitment and retention of teachers by way of scholarship programs, induction and mentoring programs. Well, there's a summary of the announcements made by the parliamentary parties in relation to schools funding and resourcing. An analysis of those announcements lead us to the conclusion that the Greens have the superior policies in relation to public education and funding. However, we also know that as important as the Greens are in the Senate, they won't be forming government. In a choice between the major parties, it's abundantly clear that the election of an Abbott government would result in less funding and less opportunity in education. No matter what the outcome is on Saturday, it's vitally important that we recognise, as supporters of public education, that our campaign in defence of public education and our campaign to support the schools funding review remains paramount. The schools funding review represents the most significant moment in the history of schools funding in Australia, and as such, together we must all work towards mobilising every public education community in order to ensure a funding system that recognises the importance of public education, what it means to each individual child and the nation as a whole. If you'd like other information on the announcements made by the parliamentary parties in the context of the election, announcement on school curriculum and assessment, announcements on early childhood education, announcements on VET and TAFE, please visit our website forourfuture.org.au.